Kelsey, I'm so excited to have you here. When we are recording this, I'm a week away from welcoming baby number 3, which we don't know. And I love that we were just chatting through, you have 2 boys and your third ended up being a girl. But we were talking about how I think it's so funny when people used to tell me, they'd be like, I don't know what to do with a girl. And I would be like, you are a girl. You're a mom. Like, you're the mom. What do you mean? And I would be like, and now I get it, as I'm not sure what I'm having. And you're saying the same thing. And I think it's so funny. There are so many situations in life where we don't get it until we're there. And it can be something where it's like, why would you say that? And then you get to the place and you're like, oh, I get it. I understand now that I'm here. And so I think that that is like very common also when you step into entrepreneurship. And you came from a teaching background. And I'd love for you to kind of talk about like mentally where you were at when you were like, okay, I need to do something different. Were you like, oh yeah, this feels so comfortable? Or were you like, I have no idea what I'm going to do?
Gosh, no. Okay, so I was already a little mentally checked out of teaching. Like it's hard to be a teacher. I enjoyed it for a while. I enjoyed aspects of it. There was a lot of things that I didn't love. But I felt like, it's almost like a selfless thing to be a teacher, like you give so much of yourself for the greater good of others and for society and things like that, that I was like, oh, that's what I'm called to do. Like I'm a helper. Right. But then I was pregnant. And over the summer before I had him in September. So over that summer, I was like, I just don't feel good about going back to teaching. And I don't know how I'm going to be a mom and a teacher and be good at both. And some people do that flawlessly. I was not. So I kind of looked into choices and different options and kind of came across freelancing. Somebody actually local, like helps people start freelancing. And I was like, okay, she like seems real. She seems like a person. And I kind of talked to my husband about it. And he was like, I don't know if this is what, like something that you might want to do. And I was like, well, I don't know. It sounds good to me. So I kind of like put it on the back burner. Went back to start the school year, had my son 3 weeks early, which kind of rocked my world a little bit, which I know 3 weeks isn't that much, but like I was not ready. Yeah. And then I was like, I am obsessed with this baby. Like it shocked me first that he was a boy. I didn't know my babies either. And I was just like, I am so in love with this tiny little baby boy that going back to work in January is when I went off maternity leave, crushed me. I was sobbing at work. He got, I don't know, RSV or something like the first 2 days he was in daycare. I was like, this is not for me. Every day was hard. And I had only had to get through May. Like, I had summers off. So I only had to get through a few months. And I'm like, how do I get through to this? So at spring break, so March, he hadn't been in daycare for more than 2 months, I guess. I was like, I need to circle back to this other option. I need to do something different. And I was slow in my process. Like I didn't even land my first client for a couple of months. So I actually had signed on for another school year because I just didn't feel confident to leave. Yeah. So I ended up teaching the next school year, which is ironically when COVID happened. So I kind of finished out teaching after 8 years with, working from home with a toddler, trying to teach classes with him hanging out behind me. But I was so glad that I had made a different choice. It was so scary. I had no idea what I was doing. Some days I still don't think I know what I'm doing business wise, like I know like my stuff, but like learning, other stuff is harder. Nobody I knew had started a business. Like I just didn't know anything about it. But luckily, like my husband's been very supportive. He's helped me figure out the things that I haven't been able to. I've invested in courses and coaches and things that have kind of helped me along the way. But I cannot even think about going back to teaching at this point in time. Like I love what I do so much and I love the flexibility of it. And I feel so proud of myself for knowing that I needed a change and that I actually went and did it. I thought I was stuck in teaching because like, what else do you do with a math ed degree, But I feel so empowered that I made that choice for myself and my kids get to see that I made a different choice and that you're not stuck somewhere. And that is even bigger for me.
Yeah. And I think that when you're in that place, whether it's teaching or really any job, but you're like,
Yeah.
I've done the education to get to this place. I planned on being here forever.
Mm-hmm.
Especially with teaching, they talk about like tenure, right? Like
Yeah.
you go and you want to be like this certain like milestone that you're trying to hit. And for some people, they're like, why would you change that? You get summers off. You can,
Mm-hmm.
do these great things. But that 1 to 2 years that feel like super scary and messy, and you're like, did I make the right choice? I don't know. Are we going to be able to pay our bills? Like that, once you get through that really messy middle, there's still going to be challenges, right? But then you're like,
Mm-hmm.
I can't imagine going back. Like you said, I can't imagine something different.
Fathom it. It's like summers off, who cares? Like I love what I do, so like why do I even care to have time off? I would actually love to be working more, but 3 kids, you work around them, for now at least. I can take a day off whenever I want. I went on a trip last week. I would never have been able to take off some random week in March other than like the spring break that they gave you, right? But I could just be like, oh, I want to go this week. And we went and took a trip. And it was just like, that's just what we did. So it's very freeing. It is scary, but it's freeing. You know?
And I do think, entrepreneurship obviously comes with like a different level of freedom and flexibility than career life does.
Yeah.
But it doesn't necessarily mean you have to be an entrepreneur. Like what really is the important message, I think, is if you're not aligned in like your current job, in your current role, it's finding something different. And that may be a different job working for someone else. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to go out on your own. But like if you're a teacher and all of a sudden you're like, you know what, I want to go do this, then you should go do that. You should go do something different.
Yeah.
Because
I did look at like corporate options, and I was just like, well, like they don't have summers off. But like now I'm look back and I'm like, why did that matter? They have like PTO, and I didn't really have that as a teacher. You had like, I don't know, 3 days off a year or something ridiculous because you had summers off. So that's when you took your trips. But like a corporate job would have been just fine too. I think it was just that I needed something different at that point. Like I was just drained from being a teacher, really.
Yeah. And I think so often we need to do something different. My dad actually says, every now and then we have to repot ourselves. And whether that's like a new career or a new like role or something totally different. But I do think it's so important for us to change. And, our past generations often were praised on like being in the same place and security and stability for long periods of time. And I don't know that that's like how it's meant to be anymore. Like my last role I was in for 10 years, which for my age is insane, to be honest.
Yeah.
But like it felt right because I could grow within that company until it didn't. And then you switch. And I think that's the part is like when you now get to a point where you're like, this is no longer for me, you have to listen to that. But it's easier said than done. So I'd love for you to talk about like some of those moments of like complete self-doubt. And you said your husband was supportive, but he also had moments where he was like, I'm not sure that's for you. And you had a little kid. So like, where were the hard moments of being like, okay, no, I'm going to take the leap and like, it might not make sense. I don't know what to do. Like, what would you tell the woman that's in that decision-making process right now?
What I told myself originally because it was like an expense to purchase my first course to figure out like how to even start freelancing. It wasn't a crazy expense in the grand scheme of life, but it was an expense. I think it was like $700, which is not nothing,
Yeah.
But I think I told myself, even if this isn't right for me, 1, I took a chance on myself, which is empowering. And 2, I could do enough to make back that money and it would be like no harm, no foul. Right. So I think we get stuck in our heads of like, this isn't going to work for me. It's not going to work for me. Well, like try it and see. Like people spend so much money on a bachelor's degree, a master's degree, whatever, to go and do something different. And that's way more money than like one of these online courses to try something new. And so I kind of thought through that too. I was like, well, I could go get a different degree to go do something else, but that's going to cost me way more money. I already have enough degrees. I don't need more. So that was kind of where my original brain was. And that's kind of where I was like talking with my husband. I was like, I can make enough money to make this, like, even if I only do it for a few months or a year or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's crazy to think that like, that was like a small investment now in the in where I'm at in life and like the freedom that it's given me and like the mental health that it's given me back. I'm like, I could be in therapy way more often or something like that, trying to struggle through teaching instead of what I'm doing now, you know?
Yeah.
Not that therapy is bad. I think therapy is really good.
No, therapy, but also like the trade-off financially, right? Like if you don't need that because you're in a different place, like you would have spent more of that than in support. And like I always say, when you take a course or a program for yourself, it doesn't even have to be for business, but like for anything, you're investing in yourself, which basically you get 100% ROI on, because you can apply that anywhere in any way. And like, I think like how many dinners my husband and I have gone to where it's like, well, 6 dinners paid for like, you know, 3 of those or 1/2 of that course. And it's like, it's crazy that, and not that you, again, not that therapy's bad, not that you shouldn't go to your dinner with your husband. These are all good things, but like we look at these things financially so much differently than like investing in ourselves. And, you know, we spend thousands of dollars maybe on a family vacation, which again, it's great to go on a family vacation. But what is happening after that vacation? How is it pouring back into you? Like, what is the return on investment? Sometimes it is really great memories, and sometimes it's not.
Sometimes it's a little bit more of a pain.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so I think it is this like perspective shift. And I agree with you that first investment is so scary. The first like real investment I made in myself was about $300 in my business. And I remember being like, oh my God, this is so expensive. Like, am I going to make this money? But I don't even know what I'm doing. And it's so funny. Like now I've spent a lot of money on my business and myself, but you grow and you look at that differently. And I think that's so important. Let's talk about some of the association, because I'm assuming other than that freelance coach that you met locally that was kind of supporting you along the way, when you made this decision, you probably, you said you didn't really know any business owners. You didn't really know anyone to have this conversation with. What does that look like now? Like finding people that you can connect with and have that conversation?
That's one of my favorite things about this like online space of like women and moms and trying to do all the things that are like the same. We're all in a line, right? We're trying to make things better for ourselves, for our family, for the flexibility of our lifestyles. Like we don't have to do what the generations did before us, right? Like the internet does exist. We can, you know, expand our reach through all sorts of different things, whether you're selling something, a service, a product, whatever, like everyone is trying to do, like we almost all have the same goal of supporting our family, because either we need the income or we want to work, right? I actually like working now. I didn't love teaching. But we are all trying to achieve something together. We're all trying to get that income, that extra support, and have the flexibility of, you know, being there for our kids and for our family and things like that. And I just love meeting new people in this space. I love connecting with people. That's just like one of my favorite things about this space. If I have an issue, I have no problem finding someone who can help me or talk with me about it or going through the same things. You know, like anybody who's running a business from home with littles at home, we all know the same pains, you know. It's hard. It's a lot. But we're all trying to make it work, you know?
Yeah. What age did you teach when you were a teacher?
I taught high school.
Oh gosh. I think that's so difficult. But you learn like specific skills to be a teacher for any age, but high school comes with its own challenges.
Yeah, definitely not in the toddlers, you know, so they're my challenge right now. I'm like, when you were teenagers, we're gonna thrive.
But I'm curious how the skills that being a mom, being a high school teacher, being an entrepreneur, and then just like your own personal development and self-growth, like where have you seen the overlap where you're like, I can pull from this over here and apply it here? And where have you seen like the gaps where you're like, man, like these do not relate and I need to be able to get some support?
Oh my gosh, there's so much of all that. I actually think I see more overlap than not. So one of my degrees is in educational technology. And that kind of stemmed from my original major in college was computer science. So like,
Cool.
it's kind of funny that I've like circled back to web design
Yeah.
after leaving computer science, switching to math ed, and then being in the classroom. I was like, oh, I want to like implement technology into this better and to help other people do it. So then I got that degree. And now I'm like, oh, let's do web design. So
Yeah.
it's kind of funny how like, I don't know,
always
like
say
my
you can
path
connect
got
the
me
dots backwards. Yeah.
there. Yes, very much so. I feel like I found like the exact thing I was kind of looking for back when I started as a computer science major. That's like come full circle.
Yeah.
As a teacher, overlapping that with web design now, like something I'm very passionate about is when I hand off a website, I want my clients to feel confident in their back end. So I give them like video tutorials showing them how to do anything they possibly want, including the things I think are important that they know how to do with their website. Like it's their presence online. It's not mine. I'm not going to keep it a secret of, you know, this is how you update your pricing or this is how you change out images or whatever. That's for you. If you want to update that and things like that, you shouldn't feel required to call me back unless you like really don't want to touch it. But I want them to have the confidence in that. So I like teach them, you know, bringing back that teaching aspect, how to navigate the back end and things to do and things like that. I think some of the mom life is just like being able to connect with other moms going through the same thing. You know, everyone comes to on their call, you know, apologizing that their kids are interrupting them, or, you know, they have their lunch with them because they haven't had time to eat lunch yet because they were taking care of the kids. None of that bothers me. Like, I'm like, I'm with you. We're all in this together. None of that phases me. I'm here to help you so that you don't have to feel as stressed. So I feel like all overlaps. I'm not sure that there's necessarily a gap. I feel like I'm the type of person that learns things before wanting to take action, which, you know, everybody has their different pieces of that. But so I kind of learn a lot before I'm ready to like jump, which is why that first jump was hard. I was like, this is nothing I'm familiar with. So I felt like I had to do like a lot of research on it. And I was like, I think I should try this, you know, and just went with it.
But you finally jumped. I love that.
I jumped. Yeah.
What would you say are like the top 1 to 3 red flags that when you go to someone's website, they're like, oh man, I wish they knew this, or the things that people just constantly are messing up? Like you could probably audit my website right now and be like, hey, you messed up here. What are like some of the top ones?
Oh gosh, as a mom, the biggest one that I tell this all the time, the biggest one that drives me crazy is I'm on Instagram all the time, right? That's how I connect with people. That's how I click to websites a lot. You know, I design on my computer, but I interact with people on my phone. Yeah. When I click to their website and it's not mobile optimized, if there is something I can't click, if the menu doesn't work, if there's like stuff scrolling off the screen that I have to scroll back and forth, anything about the mobile view, if it's not right, that's what drives me most crazy.
Yeah.
Just because I feel like if you're targeting moms, I work with a lot of moms. I work with a lot of people who work with moms. A lot of us are on our phones. Like we're like jumping on there in between whatever is going on in the family, you know, and we're just, it needs to work from the mobile device. Like people aren't going to send themselves your website. They're just going to go find someone else.
Yeah.
The other big thing is always having like a call to action above the fold. And by above the fold, like when you come onto it on a screen, whether that's on mobile view or on desktop view, they should know what's that next action they want you to take. You know, is it a button to book a call? Is it to go learn more about your services? Is it to shop if you have a storefront, things like that? There should be a really obvious call to action the second they land on your website. And kind of spinning off of that, they should know what you do and who you serve also above the fold, like right when they land on there. Because some people don't scroll. Some people don't want to learn more about you. They don't want to spend the time to like search through your website to find all those things. So having those things like front and center is ideal.
I love that. Now there's the tech of building a website, right? Like the actual formation of the site. But then there's the strategy behind it, which is some of the stuff that you're talking about. And then that kind of tiptoes into marketing, which is actually my background. What would you explain to someone like the difference between like copy and marketing strategy compared to like website strategy and what you do? Where's kind of the line between the two?
They all kind of like run a little bit together, right? But
Yeah.
when I work with a client, we start with, what are your goals, right? What do you want your website to do? What do you want people to do on your website? Who are you trying to market towards? You know, any type of marketing person, I think, would ask these similar questions, right? And then I outline what I think the website should start to kind of look like section by section. Here's what we're going to talk about in this section. Here's like your little about section. Here's your services, you know, things like that. And we talk about that on a call. We always have a strategy call to make sure that that outline, that flow feels good to the client, makes sense in a strategy point of view of like how the website should flow. And that includes navigation, like the menu, where we want to take people from different page to different page. So much can go into that. I could talk forever about that stuff. But then there's also, like, I provide an outline. I say, you know, in this section, we're going to talk about this. I want a headline, I want a description, and I want bullet points, or I want a button here. Then I pass that off to either a copywriter or back to the client to write out themselves. You don't want me to touch your copy. I can understand the importance of copy because I do think it is very impactful for connecting with your audience, and it can kind of make or break you, right? You want it to be clear, you want it to be consistent, you want people to know what you do, and you want to connect with them. That all comes from words, but then also how we display those words, right? Yeah. We don't want like 20 paragraphs of text on your homepage. Like, no one's going to read all of that. You know, like, can we keep it short and concise? Can we break it up with images and different colored backgrounds? Can we put this in a box and this in a different section? You know, how can we spread out the love a little bit? How can we use different fonts and colors to draw the eyes to certain headlines or to certain pieces of the copy? All of that kind of goes into the design strategy. And that's just on a single page. Then we're talking about, where do we take them through to the website? You know, there's just so much that can go into the design of those words too, to make sure that we're leading people to that call to action and we're not losing people from it being too hard to navigate through the website. Yeah,
that's so important. Now, for websites, you primarily work with entrepreneurs, right? But there's kind of this new, I wouldn't even call it a trend, but like a recommendation to have a personal website, kind of regardless of what you do, to build, whether it's a portfolio or just like information on who you are, if you're going to be in a job, anything like that. Where do you feel like, you also hear in the entrepreneur world, you don't have to have a website. Like, you don't need a website when you get started. You can just DM people. You can have a link in your bio. Canva is an amazing tool for designs, and they have a website option, but it is not optimized. It's on like Canva. It's not SEO friendly. It's not mobile friendly. There's a lot of flaws with it, but I see a lot of people starting there. So like, what are your thoughts about like personal websites, business websites, and like the need and necessity to have one at what stage?
I feel like, you know, when you're ready to up level, truly, like, you're either feeling comfortable and you're like, I want to be doing more. I want to find higher paying clients. I want to achieve more on a monthly basis or whatever. Like, you're comfortable, but you're like, I'm ready. I'm ready for more. I'm ready for that next step. At that point, if you have been working on just a portfolio or just a Canva website or what, you know, whatever, working in DMs, that's, to me, that's the next step, is get a professionally done website so that it looks good, it acts well, right? Like, it does what it's supposed to do. There's a strategy on it. It's mobile optimized, all those different things that not everything can provide in a great way. I feel like most people kind of know they're ready for that type of thing. Yeah.
You reminded me too, is when I started my business, like, I really wanted my website to look good. Like, I wanted to be proud of it. And a lot of people told me, they're like, you're just focusing on the wrong things. And there is a lot of truth to this, right? Like, entrepreneurs, sometimes they get started, they totally get distracted with the wrong things. It is not the thing that moves the needle. It's not the thing that's making them money, and it's not important. But there is like this energetic thing with, if you don't have the thing that's going to let you show up, and you can't get through that mental block, then you should probably just invest in it and do it, because otherwise you're going to waste way more time and money. And should you be able to do that without the fancy website? You should. But the fact of the matter is, if you're not going to, then maybe you should have a website that you stand behind. Have you seen this with your clients? Like, what is the confidence and energetic shift when they're like, oh my gosh, my website is so beautiful. I'm so proud of my company and my brand.
You can tell that they're just dropping it everywhere. They are so jazzed to share it. They're so excited to just put it out there in the world because they feel so confident. It's kind of like, I don't know, when you go into like, not that I did very many of these, but when you went to like a business interview or like a new job interview, like you dress the part, right? You like dress with confidence. It's kind of the same concept, you know, like when you have a website that you feel confident, you love, you know, it looks good, you know, it's going to do what you want it to do. It's much easier to talk about it, to share about it, to like promote yourself because you are professionally seen. You look like a professional.
Yeah. Okay, another question for you. I've heard mixed opinions on using your branding for like your whole web page, your whole website, and your sales pages, or to have like your general branding, but like each offer or each sales page has like a little bit of a different version of branding. And I know part of this is a marketing conversation, but I'm curious from like the website design portion or what you've seen from marketing consultants you've worked with. What's your feedback on that? Like, keep all branding consistent, or yes, show like different branding with offers and landing pages that are for something specific?
You know, I like a consistency. I like when somebody sees a landing page because landing pages don't always have that like logo or that menu or whatever that makes it really obvious of who you've landed on. But to me, if I land on somebody's sales page, landing page, or whatever, I feel better if I know that brand. Like I've seen that before. I know who that person is. Like I just created one for somebody, and while it looks different than her website, right? Like it doesn't need to be like all the exact same look to it, but like the branding is consistent. When I see her sales page, I'm like, yep, that flows exactly what I would expect it to look like for her website. And I didn't even build her website. I just kind of went with her branding and like made it flow to look not the same, but like it feels the same. It gives the same vibe, right? So I love the consistency, truly.
I love that. What are your favorite platforms to build on, work on? Are you exclusive with a couple?
I work with WordPress. That's where I started. That's where I've been. I've messed around on a few of the other ones. I just always circle back to WordPress. But then there's so much you can do with WordPress that it's like, okay, now what theme do you work with? What page builder do you work with? You know, all those types of things. But I can work with a lot of that different stuff as long as we kind of stick with WordPress. I'm not going to say that's the only thing I can work with. It's just my preferred platform. If somebody's coming to me, I'm going to be like, if you don't have something, I'm going to suggest WordPress. It has so much future growth. It has so much customization, so much flexibility. Like I've had people come to me from other platforms that we won't just like badmouth, but that they're like, I can't get it to do what I want it to do. I was like, well, that's because that platform doesn't do that. Whereas WordPress, you have just unlimited options. And there's so many resources out about it. Like if you don't want to call me back, but you want to like try and problem solve something to do on your website, there's YouTube videos everywhere about WordPress. So it's just really easy to find resources, whereas some of the other ones just don't have the same type of backing.
Yeah. Okay, on a logistical level of how you manage your day-to-day, there are certain things that we can do with toddlers around us, and there are certain things we cannot. And I feel like web design is one of those things that you cannot do while you are multitasking with like a little toddler. Is it like so familiar that you can, and there's certain things that you're like, I can do this? Or how do you identify like when you need your space away from the kids and when you can multitask and like be mom and employee or entrepreneur at the same time?
Yeah. It depends, really. It depends on which child or which children are home and how many of them, because 2 of them go to preschool a couple days a week for a few hours. So those are like my optimal times. Baby's still napping while they're at school. So that's been very helpful. Those are like my like good chunks of work time. But sometimes like I only have one kid at home, and I like, if I like give them something to do for a few minutes, then I can get 20 minutes of design done. And then they're bored with that and we switch it up. Or, you know, you kind of find those little weird pockets of time that work for you.
Yeah.
Sometimes, it's working, almost always it's working during nap time, right? I have one that still naps well, I don't know. They all nap and sleep and don't sleep at different times, but
Yeah,
there's certain hours of the day where there's certain hours of the day where there's less kids around, and that's like the optimal times. Like I can design with a baby on my lap. Can I design with a toddler on my lap? Not as well, because they're just like bouncy and everywhere. So while like toddlers were napping, I would have baby on my lap and I'd be designing. Every now and then, an evening or a weekend hits where I'm trying to hit a deadline or trying to accomplish more, because I don't know, I had sick kids for like a month and a half, it felt like. So I was like not behind, but I was trying to get ahead while they were asleep.
Yeah.
Because I knew the next day was going to be rough because they were sick, and they needed more and more attention and things like that. So it's really just like, I don't know that I have a day-to-day schedule or flow. Really, it's more of like, okay, what's on the agenda tomorrow? What do I need to get done? How can I fit that in? And I just work around what I can.
Yeah. I think it's so important to share that though, because you hear a lot of like, oh, my morning routine, my work routine, this is how I manage things with my kids. And I feel like I'm kind of in that season right now a little bit, but we've had other seasons where like every single day looks so different. And I know as I welcome like this baby, we're going to be back to that season of like everything looks so different. Yeah. And I think that more moms need to hear that, because I think that they maybe stop themselves from pursuing something different, and it doesn't even have to be a business. Like it could be a hobby or working out or whatever it is, but like it does not have to look the same every day. And I think that we don't set ourselves up for success when we normalize that like it's not about when it happens, like the same every day. It's just about like, hey, this is how I'm going to make it happen, and it's going to look different. And I love that you say, like, you just look at, okay, what has to happen? And like, how can I possibly make that work today? And maybe it is a baby on the lap, or maybe it's not. What are there any like non-negotiables in your business? Like for me, I like don't like to have my kids home when I'm podcasting, for example. This is a mom podcast. If you hear them in the background, like I'm not going to care. That's like why we're here. But me personally, I'm going to be more focused, and I'm going to feel better if I'm not like, what was that noise? What's happening? What's going on? So that's like one of my non-negotiables. As much as I can, I try to not have them be something I'm worrying about during podcasts. But there's so many other things that they're like fully running around while I'm doing work. Do you have anything like that? What are your like non-negotiables?
I've set a few new ones this year because I feel like I've grown. I don't know. My word of the year is growth, right? In every aspect of life. I'm just trying to, except for like humans. I'm tired of growing humans at this point. But I kind of put the precedence that I am not going to take calls on Fridays. For some reason, I was just like, this is my kid's last year not in like full-time school. And I was just like, Fridays are going to be like our days to like go to the library or take a long walk or go to the park or whatever. And of course it's been winter and I feel like we haven't gotten anywhere, but I am trying to like reserve that time for him because I know he's going to be like gone so much starting in the fall. And I'm like, this is going to be great. I'm going to miss him. So I've kind of decided Fridays are not my day for calls, which is a little annoying because that's when my husband a lot of times works from home and I could easily fit in calls. But I told myself this is something I was not going to do. So I kind of set that boundary. But I haven't done that until like January. I would just throw calls wherever I could. But I'm like, nope, if we can't fit it in before then it moves to the next week. I also try not to have kids with me for that initial like discovery call and that initial strategy call. If it's like a random other call that we're like just checking in on, that doesn't bother me as much, but I focus a little bit better without them like on my lap. But if they need to be for whatever reason, then they are. And I am trying to refuse to apologize for that. This is the business I built. This is the business of being a mom. If it upsets a potential client that I have kids at home, then we're just not like the best fit. So I'm trying to not apologize for having kids. They might come and interrupt a call, which that doesn't bother me either. But some people are annoyed by that, and I'm like, then we're not the best fit at that point because this is the life I live. And I don't know when they're going to be home because they could be sick for another month. I don't know. There's different times where they're home, even when I don't plan for them to be. And sometimes I'll move a call. Like I had a really sick baby for like a week and a half and I had to move some things around. But for the most part, I just don't know what their day-to-day brings because they're children and they just pop in and out of my day-to-day. That's the business I run and I'm not going to apologize for them.
Yeah. And I love that. Right. But that took confidence building to get there. So talk to like the new entrepreneur that's like, but I need the client. And what happens if they don't like me? Because we all have those seasons, right? Where you're like, gosh, I can't afford to not get this client because they don't like my baby in the picture. So how were you able to make that transition? Was it just time and like as you built the business, or did you start that way? You were like, this just is what it is.
No, I think I tried to hide them a lot. Like I said, I was a mom, but I like hide them. And I was like, but I'm a mom, right? Like that's who I am as a business, so I kind of had to like really focus on who I work with, who I want to work with, the people, the type of person I want to work with. Like, cause not all moms are in the same mindset, right? Some of them don't want their kids to be part of their business or whatever. But to really set that boundary came from rough experiences with people that it just didn't, you catch those things where like, it feels like a red flag, but you're like, oh, but I really need this. And then it ends up just not being the best. And you're just like, why did I take that? I knew in my gut, it didn't feel good, but you did it anyway. And so in the long run, I ended up doing like way more work for somebody for, like we were totally outside the project scope, like just all these different things that I'm like, I knew I shouldn't have done it. I knew I shouldn't have. And I tell myself that too many times that I'm like, okay, now is the time where we're just not going to do that anymore. So I feel like it just came from experience. I don't know.
Yeah. And I wish that we could tell people like, oh, you don't have to go through it yourself first to like learn that. But unfortunately, I think you do.
You kind of have to
like make those decisions that you're like, maybe I don't want to make that differently next time. But I think maybe it does help hearing like you can set boundaries and you can run your business the way that you want it to. And there are going to be clients that are not a good fit for you. And I think this actually like also reminds me of just like friendships and relationships, like
very
outside
true.
of that, right? Like you may have like a little bit of a feeling about like a friendship or a relationship. And you're like, I should have known that like we just weren't going to click on that, or that we weren't meant to be like mom friends in that way, or whatever it is. But we push through because maybe you're feeling lonely or you want that connection, and you're like, oh, it's fine, like we'll just be friends for this part of friendship. And it's like, that's fair too, but then does it end up being more work than it's worth, or you end up putting in more than you needed to? And I think we are conditioned as people to want to please, right? And to want to be liked and want to be needed. And we, especially as moms, are falling into this as well, that then we make decisions that we're like, oh man, I shouldn't have done that one. I shouldn't have made it. But you just have to learn as you go, and you find your people, but you have to keep going. And this is something that I wish more moms understood, and business owners and everyone alike, whether it's a job, a friend, a business relationship, a client. If something doesn't work out, it does not mean it's not for you. Like you need to keep going. You need to keep finding more friends, keep finding more jobs that are going to be the right fit for you. Like how many of us have had like a bad relationship or a bad employment situation, and like what if we were just like, you know what, that's it, I'm never dating again, or I'm never going to work in a job again. It's like you have to keep going. Like just because you had a bad boss or a bad boyfriend or whatever, you have to keep going until you find your spot. And it's the same thing with clients, it's the same thing with friends. And I think
it's the same thing with motherhood.
Motherhood, like what if we just gave up on a day we have a bad day as a mom? That's it.
Oh,
I'm
out. Like every day comes with a different challenge that we either have to overcome or figure out, or be like, well, I'm not going to do that again. And you just learn and you grow. It doesn't mean that you failed. It just means that you have to figure out a different way to go about it.
Yeah, I'm literally in my head just like laughing about like if I just like quit because I peeled the banana the wrong way, you know, like,
the wrong color plate, you know, like whatever.
Yeah. My 3-year-old is in this season right now where every morning I'll say, do you want to pick your clothes or do you want me to? And every morning he'll say, I want you to, Mom. And every morning I'll pick his clothes and he doesn't like what I pick. And we have this conversation every single day. And I'll be like, okay, so maybe you should pick your clothes today because you don't like them. And it's so funny because it's the same thing every single day. And so now we've started like asking different questions. Like I heard my husband this morning, he got him dressed and he was like, do you want blue pants or brown pants? Like,
there you go. Like, at least choices seem to work in your family. Like I'll be like, okay, do you want the mint toothpaste or the strawberry toothpaste? No, that wasn't a choice. Like, what, we're giving you an option here, you know. I just get no back. He's almost 3, so yeah.
We have those moments too, but you know, then they start to learn that they do have to pick one of the choices. There was something yesterday, I wish I could remember what it was, and I just remember my response was, I don't have that option for you, so that's not a choice. I don't even remember what it was, but I was like, that's not an option.
I give that optional. I say that all the time. I was like, well, that's not one of the choices here, sir.
Oh my gosh, I love that. Okay, so on a day-to-day basis, you know, we were talking about how things look totally different day to day, but what are things that like light you up inside for your day? And you say you love to work. I do too. We love our kids. I know we do. But like, is there a couple check boxes or are there kind of, I like to call them buckets. Like I like to say like, okay, I'm going to try to bucket this version of today and that's going to make me feel good. Are there any ways you like manage the house working from home with the kids at home full time that like you feel like set you up for success, or things that you're like, I really don't know. Like these are
you know, I always tell myself I'm going to be that person that gets up early and works before the kids and has like my morning coffee before the kid. That's not who I am. And then I've accepted that fact about myself.
That's okay, me either. I'm not that person either.
Nope, we just aren't that person. I do attempt to like do some sort of like move my body on a daily basis, whether that's a walk with the kids because that's all I could fit in, or they watch TV while I try to work out or something like that. But that for some reason gets my like mental and physical self in a better alignment. I'm like, oh, I fit something in for me. Yeah. There's certain days where I haven't had a single moment without a child. Whereas some days, like they're both at school and she's napping and I have like hours of nice, beautiful, quiet time.
Yeah.
But on those days where I'm like, oh, it's like 6 p.m. and I haven't been child free at all today. So I communicate with my husband. I'm like, I haven't had a moment today. Can I please go take a little bit? And he's really good about that. He lets me go and like just lay in my bed. And I'm usually like reading a book or like doing something on my phone to just not have somebody need me. Yeah. Like, I know I can be a better mom if I take those moments, right? I don't know that necessarily applies to business necessarily, but it turns me into, I don't know, I feel like a better person overall and I can show up better for any aspect of life. Business-wise, what lights me up, I love when I have a new project and I just like get started. Like I've already done all the back end setup. We've already talked strategy. Like I feel like ready to go. I get so into the design and like getting it all perfect and things like that is like my favorite part. You know, I just love creating something that I'm proud of and I'm very proud to like show a client and they get excited about it. And that's just like my favorite part of all of it. That's how I know I'm in the right spot for where I'm at in life, at least right now. But I love it.
I love that. Now, before I ask you last couple questions, where can everyone find you, connect with you, especially if they're looking to have a website built? Where should they head?
Well, easiest place to, if you want to learn more about me or work with me, is my website, which is just kelseyromine.com. And then I am most active on Instagram. That's where I share some tips and just things about websites, mom life, all the different things to like just learn about me as a person, as a designer, things like that. And that is at kelsey.m.romine.
Perfect. And we'll link that below. And there are a couple different ways that people can work with you, right? So you do like full website builds. What are some of the other offers that you have that can support business owners or people that are looking for a website even personally?
Yeah. full website builds from like custom website builds is what I do best. But I also can do website audits. It's an offer I have that I have not promoted heavily yet, but it's there. So if you just want to know like how you can improve your website from a strategy standpoint, that I can just like walk through on a Zoom call and tell you different things that you could change on your website to just make it more impactful. I have a product that I am releasing. It's just like a planning workbook, so to get you in the right mindset for like what goes on your website and how that design and that strategy can kind of play together on your website. And if you really need like a landing page or a sales page, like you just need that little addition, I can do that for different WordPress websites. And sometimes I'll take on maintenance clients too, whereas like I will do all like the back end stuff for you so that you don't have to touch it.
Love that. So a little bit of everything. So
there's a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. But people need it. There's so many people that are like, gosh, I want to do this, but I don't want to do the tech. So it's good to have like a trusted resource support. And like you said, especially like if you're listening to this podcast, you're probably a mom. And so having another mom that just like gets the other life of what's going on behind the scenes is so important. So, if you were to think back to your journey throughout this entire time, it's been what, about 4 years that you've been, about 4 years. What has been the biggest positive surprise of the thing you're like, gosh, we talked a little bit about this at the beginning, but like what you just can't imagine, like not being a part of your life. And then what has been like one of the biggest like challenges or hardships?
The biggest challenge, I'm going to say two, actually, because we kind of talked about one. So it's not really, one of the biggest challenges was that initial jump, like just to like be like, I might be done with teaching and I'm going to do something else. And that just felt scary. It felt intimidating to just like not do something so familiar and that people don't know about. People don't know about this space very well unless you're kind of in it, right?
You're doing like, what? What are you talking about?
Well, and I started as like a VA and like social media, and people pay you to like work on their social media. I was like, well, yeah. So it's like they didn't understand it, and so like I feel like even my family was like, I don't know what you're even doing. Like, cool for you, So it's kind of like educating and taking that jump. All that was kind of a challenge. The other big challenge was really finding what I loved, right? Like I started as a VA. I did social media management. I did Pinterest management. I did some like marketing strategy. And I was like, this is fine. This is fine. Like I can do this. Until I built my first website, I didn't know that I loved it as much as I did. And I was like, well, this is what I've been looking for, right? This is what I want to do. I loved like all the little techie aspect of it. I liked the design aspect. And it was like, this is what I wanted. I don't know how many years ago when I was in college, this was what I was searching for and didn't know it. And it was just like, it was a big challenge to get to that point. Like, I just thought that I was going to be doing all these like other tasks that didn't super fulfill me for, I don't know, however long I was going to be doing it. And now I'm in something that I really love and I can't imagine doing anything else,
Yeah. I hear that from a lot of virtual assistants. And this is like something for any of the moms listening. I think the virtual assistant business is like the coolest opportunity for moms. And I wish more moms got into it. It is like so cool. But like you said, you don't have to stay there. But it is like a great springboard. And some people do stay there. Some people transition into like an online business manager. Some people like niche down like you have into like website design. But I did not know what a virtual assistant was until I was like looking to hire one. And I would be in groups and like Facebook groups and people would be like, a VA, a VA. And I'm like, what is a VA? Like what? And I'm like, why do I keep seeing this? And then I was like, a virtual assistant. And I looked into it. And now we have a resource actually in the app. We'll link it below that talks about like all the different tasks you can do as a VA and like how you can get started. But it is such an underutilized opportunity by moms. Is such a good way to get started and figure out how to work for yourself and have flexibility. So I just, I'll get off of my soapbox with that, but I like wish more moms knew about it.
Even to start to learn all of the little things, because everyone kind of utilizes a VA differently. They might do it for this or this or this or these tasks, or they might be like, oh, could you try to do this? And like, maybe they can, maybe they can't. I don't know, but they might figure it out.
Yeah.
And it's just like, it's just like a good entry level, like internship almost. I mean, and
Yeah.
then some people like really flourish with it and they're like, I love all these different tasks and they make that their job. But it's
Yeah.
also like a good entry point into all of it.
So good. Okay, did you have another challenge, or what was the biggest like surprise positively when you were going
I almost
into
think that
this?
that challenge, I kind of like led that to
Yeah.
my like
So the
my
surprise positively
the
was like
surprise was
finding like your thing
finding
and
web
being like,
design.
this is what
Yeah.
I want to do. I love
Yeah.
it. That is so good. Okay. What is something right now that you are really lit up about, a goal that you have? What are you focusing on maybe this year, personally, professionally, that you're just like, this is my thing right now, I'm really excited about?
It's kind of just staying where I'm at, right? I am just trying to do more. I
Yeah.
feel like I've spent 5 or 6 years growing little humans in my body, with my body, whatever, that I feel like now it's my turn to grow something that that's for me. Not that I love. Okay.
Yeah.
I love web design. I love my kids, right? But this is for me. This is just for me. I love it. I want to do something with it. So in general, I'm just like all about the growth. I'm doing podcasts. I'm being an expert trainer in memberships and different things that I never would have done a few years ago, that I'm trying to grow, to do more, do bigger, do better, however you want to phrase it. Because I want it for me. And I
I
think
love that.
that's just what I'm going to do this year.
I love that. I'm so proud of you for taking the first step, because you can't get to that place where you're like, okay, now I'm going to do this for me, if you don't take that first like super scary step. So
Yeah.
let's just celebrate you for that. Thank you so much for coming on, Kelsey. Your journey, your story is so inspirational, and I can't wait to see all the websites you're going to build and what you've already done. You've had so much success. And again, going back to taking that first leap of like, what could I do that's different than this? So thank you for being, an inspiration for all the moms listening and being here.
Thank you for having me. It was lovely to chat with you.